lovely to have you on, Your Worship.
Hey, good to catch up with you, Michael, and none of that Sir Worship stuff.
You must have you enjoyed your first 18 months?
Oh, no, it's been really challenging. We had a big storm through Nelson in August 22, and so it's been quite a drama in working our way through the cost of
that's right.
that. It was the worst civil disaster that Nelson had in about 50 years, so that's kept my hands full. We've been ironic, and we had about 200 landslides, and I originally did my doctorate in landslides, which I never thought I'd ever find useful in my time in politics. But no, it's an enjoyable role. Actually, the best thing about it, Michael, is being at home, being a member of Parliament and travelling for 31 years and become a bit of a grind. And another thing is, look, I'm an independent mayor, as you were, and so not having those party shackles is also a sense of freedom, albeit no matter what role you have, and rightly so, in local or central government, there are always constraints, and you just got to work with those.
Yeah, you just would have heard our previous caller. He was a district councillor with the Mackenzie District Council bemoaning the long-term plan. You would have just struck them for the first time, this year, I guess. Or are you doing one this year, or have you taken the year off?
Yes, we are, and we've been up to our eyeballs in it. We're just used to finalise at the end of June. Had some sympathy with those views expressed. It's a very bureaucratic, expensive process.
Yeah.
The only bit you do have to have in your mind, and lots of people struggle with this when they come from business into the council environment, it's this, Michael. Councils have this very strong power to take people's money off them without their permission through rating.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that there are constraints as a consequence, that you have to go through some legal processes by which the public can test you before you exercise those powers. And some people who come from a business background do struggle with it. Is his point fair that those constraints can be damn expensive and bureaucratic? Yes. Could it be simplified? Yes. But you need to have some.
Nick, you're leading a bit of a charge at the moment, and I think it's on behalf of Local Government New Zealand, or you're working in concert with, to reform local government, because you say essentially the model's broken. You're using voter turnout at local government election as an example of people being disaffected and really disassociated from the local government process. And you're also suggesting that the time in which councils are around, 3 years, is too short. It's the same sort of argument about the parliamentary term as well. Do you think, though, that the real problem that local government and people are disaffected and disenchanted with local government is local government itself? Because, well, frankly, you just can't trust the buggers?
Oh, there'll always be that healthy level of cynicism towards people in councils and local government. That's always going to be there. The piece of work that I'm doing for LGNZ is quite narrowly defined around the issue of voter turnout. I'm a Democrat to the core, deeply believe in those values. And the problem is that postal voting is on the way out. The number of people even today that have letterbox is in sharp decline. Everybody's doing their business online. The councils made the switch from what was in-person voting and a single polling day back in the 70s and 80s, and councils made that change at a different time over to postal. But I think postal is on the way out, and we've got to resolve it. It's hard because while people have skirted with doing online voting for 25 years, and I've heard it debated over and over again, there are huge issues around its security. Both the GCSB and the NZSIS have expressed real concerns about going down that road, and this problem needs to be sorted.
So you're saying, I didn't realise that our security agencies are saying that if we were to switch to online voting, it would be insecure.
Correct. They've raised real concerns about the viability of being able to do it. And it's interesting, if you read the international literature, only a few jurisdictions have had a crack at online voting, and it hasn't been a great success story. So it's an issue that just needs to be sorted, and Local Government New Zealand are need to be involved. I participated on the Justice Select Committee and quite a lot of, and was National's electoral law spokesperson. Got a keen interest in the topic area and keen to try and find a solution. If we look at the numbers, actually New Zealand's got really good participation in parliamentary elections at about 80%.
Yeah.
But at local body elections, it's been dropping from about 60% when I first got involved in politics in the 80s. to where it's now down to about 40%. And so it's timely to kick the tyres. I do think, and this is just where I'm very practical, it's not surprising that people take a lot more interest in parliamentary elections than local elections, in that government spend in any community takes 10 times as much money off people and spends 10 times as much. And so people are behaving logically and recognising that Parliament has a lot more power and does a lot more things. But it still is important for New Zealand that our council and our local elections are effective, and I'm looking forward to getting into the piece of work.
Yeah, I mean, well, good luck on trying to find a solution, because the reason we went to postal ballots was because the one day on which you voted, it was a Saturday, the voter turnout was declining. So they thought, well, if we make it a postal ballot and give people 3 weeks to put it in, that will up the level of people who are voting, and I think initially that proved true. You're right. But what can you replace it with if online is insecure? Postal voting is falling off. Or are you addressing? And can I put this to you, Nick? Are you addressing the wrong problem? If I look around at the last election, for example, and I think back to Wanganui when I was there as well, we had turnout that was 66, 67%. And that's because we made an effort and the council engaged with the community, and the community was engaged with what the council's doing. Is it a commentary on councils when turnout's low that they're simply not engaged with the community at all?
Well, if we look at the pattern of voter turnout, it is absolutely true that then when there's a heap of controversy on, that the participation goes up. Equally so, if you look at parliamentary participation in elections, when people are relatively happy and you're getting the re-election of a government, the poll tends to be down. And then what tends to happen, both in New Zealand and overseas, is pressure builds up, governments get tired, they get arrogant, the public get angry, and you get a big poll and they get biffed out. And that's a little bit true too, if you look at the pattern of council elections. But that shouldn't take away from the broader challenge of making sure that that system is working well through the cycle. It's also interesting, I think, you've got a problem where, you know, when we run the parliamentary elections, the Electoral Commission runs a pretty effective nationwide campaign of advertising to make people aware. We have every single council doing something different. We've got different voting systems in every different council, which makes it confusing. I do think they are some of the issues that we're going to have to kick the tyres in and coming to a solution.
The other thing that I was interested in too, Nick, and you've just, it is a new job being mayor, and no matter how much political experience you have, you sit around a table. And it's the power of the bureaucracy in local government, that sort of dividing line between governance and management. I have to be honest with you, as a mayor, I said there is no dividing line, and as far as I'm concerned, governance sets policy all the time. What I've noticed in the last 20 years, though, is that management throughout New Zealand, council staff, the bureaucracy of senior management, have seemed to push governance further and further away from managing the levers of power, and really leaving you very few policy decisions. Is that something that you've struggled, and do you think that that might possibly be a reason why people have lost faith in their elected officials, because they can't hold the bureaucrats to account on a daily basis?
Oh, I think that issue that you dig into is relevant to both central and local government, is the relative power of the bureaucracy vis-a-vis the elected members. And that we always thought that the wonderful British comedy, Yes Minister, for those that practice politics, felt that it was more of a documentary, the extent to which the permanent bureaucracy was able to control the agenda. There were those huge changes that were made in the Rogernomics era.
State Sector Act.
To local government. And
the local government Act,
Absolutely. And there was good reason for that. You know, what was going on was now the only employee of the council is the chief executive. Every one of the other employees is accountable to that chief executive. And it did become highly bureaucratic as a consequence of elected members dabbling around in a whole lot of operational stuff that did make local government inefficient. My view is the pendulum swung too far, and it would be good to have a fresh look at that.